Okay, everybody, welcome to a new episode of our Green Vibes podcast. And today we are doing something a little bit different that we are used to because today our guest, it will be by Zoom, it will be by online. He's not here in Canada, and later on we're going to explain why he's not here in Canada, why he is not here in person with us that we are used to. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that we'll have a great conversation with this our guest that I'm going to introduce you. So today we have the opportunity to sit down with a Canadian American environmentalist, Captain Paul Watson. Captain Paul Watson, he's founder member of Greenpeace and the founder of Sea Shepherds. And today with him to hear about his own journey and the incredible, inspiring work that he's doing every single day. So, Paul, welcome here. Thank you very much for your time, Paul.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to have you here and have this opportunity to talk with you. So, for us to start, Paul, I just want you to let's start with a brief introduction of how everything starts with Sea Shepherds. What is this and when it starts? Tell us a little bit.
Well, I'll be as brief as I can.
Okay, we have time. Don't worry.
I was a co-founder of Greenpeace. That was in 1972, and I was with Greenpeace till 1977. But then I left Greenpeace to establish Sea Shepherd because Greenpeace is a protest organization. I didn't like protesting. Okay. So I set up Sea Shepherd to directly intervene against illegal activities, and with a new strategy, which I call aggressive nonviolence, which means we're not going to hurt anybody. And in 45 years, we've never hurt anybody, but we don't hesitate from damaging property, which is being used to take lives. For instance, if somebody's about to shoot an elephant and you grab the rifle and you destroy the rifle, to me, that's an act of nonviolence. You're saving a life, but you're destroying property. Yeah. But in a society where property tends to be more valuable than life, or considered to be, tends to be controversial. But we've been very consistent over the years, and we've shut down literally hundreds and hundreds of illegal activities, including driving the Japanese whaling fleet out of the Southern Ocean. And we've done that without injuring anybody.
Mm-hmm. And they are still doing the Japanese. They are still on working. This Japanese part, no, it's not working anymore, right?
There's no Japanese whaling in the Southern Ocean. They're whaling as of 3 years ago. Whaling no longer takes place in international waters. The only whaling that takes place is in Norwegian waters. They're number one, Japan number two, Denmark, and possibly Iceland. Iceland hasn't killed any whales for 3 years, but we'll see where they're going. But what that means is that since 1975, when I began this, 95% of all whaling operations around the world have been shut down.
Perfect. That's awesome. But when you saw the news about Sea Shepherd, right? Just to take opportunity that you are saying about that, Sea Shepherd has been accused for violent and terrorism activities. Why they said this about Sea Shepherd?
Oh, people call us names. I have no problem with that. We've never been convicted of a felony crime.
Because as you said, you damage, like said, is damage properties, right? Not lives, not people. You never hurt anybody about doing your activities.
Well, the people we go against are pretty powerful. They got a lot of money.
That's the thing. Yeah, I know.
To give you an example, in 2010, we went after illegal tuna fishing off the North African coast. We encountered a Maltese vessel, and in the net, they had 800 tuna that had been caught illegally. I cut open the nets. We released the tuna, and then they rammed us. We attacked them. We destroyed their net, they said. Anyway, that was fine. They were poachers. I had no problem with that. A year later, we were arrested in Scotland on charges of damaging their property and stealing their property. And I had to post a 700,000 pound bond to release my ship. And we went to trial. And at the trial, we won. And then they appealed the trial. In fact, their lawyer said, we'll just throw money sea shepherd until we destroy them. And so they won the appeal. And then we went to the Supreme Court of Great Britain, and we won. And they had to pay us $1.5 million in damages. So we fight these things in courts as well as on the land, but we win in the courts. But of course, these people are going to call us names and that. One of the funniest things is that in 1976, when we sank half of Iceland's whaling fleet and destroyed their whale processing plant, which was a great victory for the whales because they didn't kill another whale for 17 years after that. I was doing a talk show in Vancouver when somebody called in a bomb threat to protest the fact that I was violent, which I thought had to be one of the most absurd things I've ever heard of. And so we had to evacuate the building and went down onto the sidewalk. And a reporter said, well, Greenpeace has just called you an eco-terrorist. What's your response? And I didn't want to get into a big thing with Greenpeace. So I just simply said, oh, what do you expect from the Avon ladies of the environmental movement anyway? And they've never forgiven me for that, but they forget what they called me first.
They always blame you, right?
Well, like I said, we get called lots of names. That doesn't really bother me. About 12 years ago, I was invited to give a lecture to the FBI at the FBI Center in Quantico in Virginia. And after I gave the lecture, one of the special agents says, well, Sea Shepherd's walking a very fine line when it comes to the law. And I said, yes, but does it matter how fine that line is as long as you don't cross the line? And they had to agree with me.
Yeah, see? Yeah, I think that's because sometimes you are fighting, let's say like that, with money, right? Because once you damage, like so you said, right, damage property, when you take this net for the fishing, they are losing money, right?
That's the bottom line. They're losing money.
Right, they're losing money. So that's why they treat you like a terrorist, that you are violent. And
yeah, let me give you a true example of our values in our society. About 20 years ago, a ranger in Zimbabwe shot and killed a poacher who was about to kill a rhinoceros. And human rights groups around the world attacked this man, said, how dare you take a human life to protect an animal? And his answer, I think, really illustrated our hypocrisy. He said, look, if a man ran out of Barclays Bank in Harare and I shot him in the head and killed him, you'd pin a medal on me and call me a hero. How is it that a bag of paper is worth more than the future heritage of Zimbabwe? We value property over life is really what it comes down to. And when you attack property, even when that property is being used illegally, that's considered to be unacceptable.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah, that's a very good example. That's true. That's true. And do you have any question for him before? Okay. So, but Paul, when you start with the Sea Shepherd, why ocean? Because we have so many another activist that goes to the environment, but animal streets for animals.
Animals farm is
animals for farm. That's why you choose ocean, and why because you are focusing it's ocean, right?
Well, in 1978, I led a campaign to protect elephants in East Africa. In 1984, I led a campaign to protect wolves in northern British Columbia and in the Yukon. But I was raised in a fishing village. I was a merchant marine sailor. That's my expertise. You can't cover it all. So I decided if we're going to be effective, have to focus on doing, something, which I decided to focus on the ocean. The strength of a strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity within it. Yeah. Therefore, the strength of a movement must be dependent upon diversity in it. If we're going to protect this planet, we need a diversity of organizations and a diversity of approaches.
I agree.
Whether those approaches be litigation, legislation, education, direct intervention, it doesn't matter. All working towards the same end. Sea Shepherd happens to fulfill that niche of opposing illegal activities. We're an anti-poaching organization, really. So that's what we do. But there are many, many other organizations focusing on many, many other things, and it all goes towards a common good.
Yeah. It's, if everybody works together, right, that's much better, right? So,
well, even if they don't work together, they're still working towards the same end. And sometimes not working together actually is a useful strategy. Because when you have a more radical organization, then it tends to make the more moderate organizations more acceptable by the people who were fighting, for instance. So, with Sea Shepherd, we tended to make Greenpeace, we tended to make the Sierra Club look more moderate, and then they're not going to talk to us, but they'll talk to them. And that's only happens because, you always have to have a more radical alternative to any approach in order to get any mainstream progress.
Yes, you're right. I agree. And when you talk about C.S. Beerus, right? You have the movie, the film that C.S. Beerus. So that had a huge impact, right? How do you feel that reaction about this film? That's
Well, we were co-producers on that film, and
yeah.
it also illustrates that the media is more important than the message. You can make a million films that nobody sees, but it's where you put them. So putting that film on Netflix guaranteed us the coverage from millions of people who saw that around the world. It was actually trending number one on Netflix for quite a while.
Yes, I saw.
And so it's really important to not only produce the film, but also to find a good medium to get that, put that film into to reach as many people as possible. That's why it was effective, is because it was on a media that reached so many people.
And with this film, did you reach the goals that you were looking for? Do you think so? How's the reaction for the people? People are changing their minds after watching this, because they really shows the real. That's what really happened, right? The reality.
You can produce a film and put it out there, and people who agree with you watch it. That's not going to change anything. The thing is to get the film out there where people who don't know anything about it get to see it. And so in that respect, it was very successful because people saw this thing, Seaspiracy, catchy title. They start showing it. So, oh, wow, I wasn't aware of that. And we got really literally thousands and thousands of letters from people saying, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not going to eat fish anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I heard some people saying about the same thing, that after watching this film, they never imagined what happened, what's really, because they think that the fishing is just like fishing. You go to your stuff, so just fishing, that's it, one fish, and no damage for the sea, no damage for the ocean, right? I think
people have no idea. I just last month we documented the dumping of over 100,000 fish at sea. They were just left there because it wasn't the target fish. So the bycatch of the world's fisheries is incredible. For every kilo of shrimp, which is marketed, 22 kilos of something else had to die and is thrown back. The waste is absolutely incredible.
It's too much, a lot.
And you don't have, like I said, people think there's little fishing boats going out there, but in fact, there's super trawlers with nets that can bring in as much fish as would fill 3 school buses, for example, at one time. You have long lines, 100 miles long, drift nets, 100 miles long, gill nets, 100 miles long. We pulled one gill net from the Southern Ocean from 2 kilometers down. It took us 200 hours to pull it in. It was 72 kilometers long and weighed 70 tons. That was just one net from one ship. So that gives you, and there's literally at any given moment, probably 60,000 miles of nets and long lines set at any time.
Let's see. And it's a huge impact there, right?
These are really weapons of ecological destruction, mass ecological destruction, curtains of death. That's what they are. We are literally destroying life in our oceans. One of the most alarming things to me is that since 1950, we've seen a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton populations in the sea. Phytoplankton provides up to 70% of the oxygen in the air we breathe, and it also sequesters enormous amounts of CO2. Why has there been a 40% diminishment? Because we've diminished marine mammals, seabirds, and fish. Those species provide the nutrient base for phytoplankton, primarily nitrogen and iron. Every day, one blue whale defecates 3 tons into the ocean, which floats on the surface and provides the nutrient base for the phytoplankton. When you reduce whale, seal, seabird populations, you diminish phytoplankton populations. And I can tell you right now, if phytoplankton were to disappear from the sea tomorrow, we all die. We do not live on this planet. We do not live on this planet without phytoplankton. It is the very foundation of life, both in the sea and on land. Those aquatic plants, which are called phytoplankton, are the basis for the life support system of this planet. Everybody says, of course, we've got to save the rainforest because the rainforests provide oxygen. And yes, they do. The forests of the world, the plants of the world only provide 30%. The rest comes from the sea.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I know your answer, but why the people still continue destroying the ocean if we have all those dates, right? We have all those information. Otherwise, your job should stop in 70, right? When you started, when you show for the world that what happened in the ocean, should stop it. Why the people want to self-destroying?
Someone once said that it's impossible to get anybody to see reality when their paycheck depends upon it.
Exactly.
And therefore, it's basically comes down to greed and profiting. I mean, look, we live in a world which is governed by principles of profit. That's why we have war, for example. I mean, look right now, you got a war in Ukraine. Who's the real winner here? The arms industries. Their shares are going through the roof. They love this. Back in when the Soviet Union split up, Russia actually applied to join NATO, and they were turned down. Why? We can't have Russia be part of NATO. We need an enemy. If we don't have an enemy, we're not going to be selling weapons. That's what it really all comes down to. And right now, NATO is going to fight to the last Ukrainian, as long as they keep those weapons sales going.
I agree. So, and long time you write, Paul, that you are activist with the ocean, for the planet, ocean. Why you still keeping fighting? Because you get arrested, people are treat you like a terrorist. It's hard. I think it's hard for you, for your family, right? Because it's affected your family, affected you personal. And but for many years, you keep fighting. Why are you motivated? What did you?
Well, first of all, it's not been hard. It's what I chose to do. And I learned a very valuable lesson way back in 1973. I volunteered as a medic for the American Indian Movement's occupation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota. And we were surrounded and being shot at about 20,000 rounds a night. They killed 2 people. They wounded 46. I went to Russell Means, who was the leader of the American Indian Movement. And I said, look, we do not have a chance of winning here. We're completely outnumbered. The odds against us are overwhelming. So why are we here? And his answer stayed with me. He said, look, we're not here because we're worried about winning or losing. We're not here because we're concerned about the odds against us. We're here because this is the right place to be, the right thing to do, and the right time to do it. Don't worry about the future. Focus on the present. What we do in the present will define what the future will be. You have no power over the future.
Yeah.
You only have power over the present.
You're right.
And
I agree.
So that's why I don't get depressed. I don't get pessimistic and everything like that. You focus on what you're doing in the present. And it's incredible that the things that you can achieve if you do that. You always have to look for the impossible answer to an impossible problem. I mean, 1972, the very idea that Nelson Mandela would be president of South Africa was unthinkable and impossible, and yet the impossible became possible. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true on many of these problems. Just look for the impossible solution. And how do you find that? Through the application of 3 virtues: passion, be passionate about it; courage, and imagination. When you harness your imagination and your courage to your passion, you can change the world.
Yeah, Paul. So you are really an inspiration, Paul, because I think that many people do not continue what you are doing, right? If I put myself in your shoes, I think because it's very hard to continue with this. I'm from Brazil, and many years ago we had the environmentalists there in Brazil that fight for the Amazon, the rainforest Amazon, and he was killed, right? People killed him because money, because we have so many peoples with power there destroying the Amazon, that they make all the deforestation there. And when someone goes there and fight and see something wrong and put in the media and shows to the world, see what is the wrong here, their life is in danger, right?
Yeah, I think you're referring to Chico Mendes.
Yes, exactly, Chico Mendes.
Yeah,
right?
Well, we have a sea shepherd is in Brazil,
mm-hmm.
and we're right now presently doing a campaign in the Amazon to protect the river dolphins. But over the last 20 years, I've worked very closely with Chief Paolo Payakan and Chief Raoni to oppose the Karora Dam projects and other projects down there. And so the indigenous people in Brazil are the ones who are leading the fight to protect the Amazon, just as the indigenous people in British Columbia are leading the fight to protect the salmon and the ecosystems there. Mm-hmm. Which leads me to the one thing. The real root problem to all of this is our view on life and reality, which is called anthropocentrism.
Yeah.
This idea that it's all created for us. We're the only species that matter. We're the only species that's important. Absolutely. Everything else is expendable. That every single major religion on this planet is anthropocentric, saying it's all about us.
Yeah.
Indigenous people have a biocentric point of view, that we're part of everything, that we're interconnected with everything. The three laws of ecology, the three basic laws, are the law of diversity, that the strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity within it. The second is the law of interdependence. All species are interdependent with each other. And the third is the law of finite resources, that there's a limit to growth, a limit to carrying capacity. And when one species steals the carrying capacity of other species, that causes diminishment in both diversity and in interdependence, which leads to an ecological collapse. A few years ago, I had a reporter from the Fox network called me up and he said, "Did you say that birds, trees, and bees and fish were more important than people?" I said, "Yes, I said that." He said, "How could you say something so? How could you say something?
How you dared say?
How could you say something so outrageous as to say bees and fish and trees are more important than people?" And I said, "Well, because they're more important than people, because they can live here without us. We cannot live here without them. We need them. They don't need us. Ecologically, that makes them much more important than we are. We're more expendable than they are. We do not live on this planet without them. That's why one of the things I say all the time, when the ocean dies, we die. We don't live with a dead ocean. If you look at the Earth as for what it is, we're a spaceship. This is this incredible spaceship that's going around the Milky Way galaxy on this wonderful voyage at high speeds. And every spaceship has a life support system that provides us with the air we breathe, the food we eat, and regulates climate and temperature. That life support system on this planet is run by a crew of engineers. Everything from the phytoplankton to the fish to the trees to the worms to the black bacteria to even viruses. This is the crew that runs our life support system. We humans, we're passengers. We're having a wonderful time amusing ourselves, but we're not crew members. But what we are doing is we're murdering crew members. We're killing them. And there's only so many crew members you can kill before the machinery begins to break down and collapses. And that's what we're doing right now. We're destroying the engineers on spaceship Earth. And really, that's going to, in the long run, the passengers are going to die along with the engineers.
If you don't take care, right? Or if the peoples don't take care about each other.
Well, right? No, we have to be responsible to the fact that this spaceship, this planet, has to be maintained. And our role, somebody asked me, well, what's the use of a human being? I'll tell you, the one thing that I've discovered is that we're very useful is if we're ever about to be hit by an asteroid, at least we have the technology to remove the asteroid. That's pretty much it. So that's what we're serving. That's our job on Spaceship Earth.
We can fight, right? I have a very good experience when back 2010, I was at the Amazon, right? I was there. And I had the opportunity to talk with about some indigenous peoples there. And that's what's very interesting there because they has a leader, right? That's their community. There is a leader. But the leader think in their peoples that live there, right? They don't think about only themselves. Whatever the leader do, that the cacique, right? That they call the cacique, the indigenous people, whatever they do, it's from the peoples, for the peoples around there, for the children's, for the women that are there, even for the animals that because they hunt to eat, right? They fishing, but they don't destroy the environment. You see their environment, that's perfect, right? Even they eat the animals, even they use that part of the where they live it for their own surviving. but it's a very good environment. And there's so much, when I had this conversation with him, he said that what it matters, it's my peoples. My peoples is what matters. That's the leader, right? That's different to what we have the world leaders, that most of them, they are selfish. They're just thinking by himself, right?
Chief Brioni had a name for the people who come in to destroy the Amazon. They called them the termite people because they come in and they eat everything up, just gobble everything up.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So, do you have any questions? So, Paul, do you think that the tide is turning? So, I mean, environment crises have never got more headlines than today. So there is a social media, documentary, news. Are they reached the tipping point? Do you think that's because now with the media, we are getting much better?
Well, I think we're certainly more aware than any time in history. But the problem is everybody is compromised by the fact that, the power lies with politicians, and they're controlled by the corporations. The media is controlled by the corporations also. You can't even tell. In the mainstream media, you don't know what's true and what's not true. I mean, they always talk about fake news. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is no news. The things that they choose to not cover, that they ignore completely. This is a problem. Since in the last 15 years, over 1,200 environmentalists have been murdered. Many of them indigenous peoples from Central and South America. And yet none of this is ever reported unless it's somebody major like Chico Mendes or something, but it's just completely ignored. But if one environmentalist sort of broke a finger of a logger in the Oregon, I'll tell you, it'd be the front page story of the New York Times. So that's how biased the media is.
So what's the difference? Because when we start in 70s and now, it's bad because media now, that, as you said, for now in a second, the whole world is know what you're doing. That's back on 70.
The media evolves all the time, and not always in a good way. Like social media, what that's resulted in is nobody knows what's true anymore. Everything is put out there as fact, when in fact it isn't fact at all. We really have to look at a science-based media to really understand what's really happening in the world. Otherwise, it's all just conspiracy theories and misinformation. Really. Yeah. But people are, like I said, more aware now than they ever have been. But the situation is far more complex, and there's more greed in the world today. And there's more authoritarianism, not all over the place. I mean, the stuff that we could do in the 60s, the stuff we could do in the 70s would not be tolerated today.
Yes, exactly.
It'd be so heavily dealt with. In 1983, I blockaded St. John's Harbor, Newfoundland, kept the sealing fleet from leaving for 2 weeks. If I tried that today, they'd blow me out of the water without any hesitation.
For sure. It's not possible, right? Not possible. But do you think that it's better for now? I don't think so, right?
No, it's not better for now. But the one positive thing is that there are more people involved, especially young people who are seeing that. I mean, the generation, I'm 71. The generation that I was enjoyed the most freedom and the most materialistic wealth than any other generation previous or will come after us. That will never happen again. We've exhausted the resources that made that possible. And now for the first time, we have young people, say under 20, under 30 even, who really can't say what the future is going to be. What's this world going to be like in 30, 40 years? They can't say. We don't know because of the negative impact that's happening right now. I was never in that position when I was 30 years old. I never felt that the world would be so dramatically changed that I wouldn't even be able to know what the future would be. But this is the world that young people are facing right now. And I think that's really as a catalyst, serving as a catalyst to get so many young people involved. That's why we have Extinction Rebellion. That's why we have Greta Thunberg's and her movement. And also the realization that governments are not going to solve these problems for us, that it has to be people in movements and organizations that are going to make the difference. It's the imagination, the courage, and the passion of individuals that will change things. Because of Diane Fossey, we still have mountain gorillas in Rwanda. Because of David Wingate, Bermuda storm petrel did not go extinct in Bermuda. So many individuals are making a difference in that way. And I can't think of anything more noble than because you lived, a species didn't go extinct or an ecosystem was not destroyed.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are becoming aware that they have the power to make a difference in that respect.
Yeah, and they can, right? Mm-hmm. When you said about the young people, that's a good point here that I put. Let's, we have the Greta, right? Greta Thunberg, and all those young peoples that now are in the movement and they are creative. Would this make a difference? Greta, I see that she's doing a very good job, right? And she's doing the difference.
You can always tell when people are doing a good job when establishment attacks them and tells them,
Yeah, exactly.
I find it absolutely astounding that politicians in their 50s and 60s and everything are so angry over Greta.
Overheard.
And that it's just amazing. And then a lot of people say, well, what does she know? Well, here's the thing. Children have an intuitive understanding of what the problem is. Sometimes when people ask me, what should we teach our children? I said, why don't you just listen to them? And because they do have that intuitive understanding. Many, many years ago, I spoke at a school in Queen Charlotte Islands in the Haida Reserve up there. And in the morning, we spoke to the kindergarten kids. Anybody here know anything about whales? We didn't say a thing. We just listened to all their whale stories. Anybody here speak the Haida language? They all spoke Haida. Yeah. So by the time we got to middle school, only half of them spoke the language. Only half of them cared about whales. And by the time we got to the seniors, nobody spoke the language. Nobody gave a damn. So we took these beautiful, intelligent children and turned them into idiots through the school system is really what that amounted to.
And you see, because on the school, at the school, we always learn, the kids, right? Even at our age, we always learn the things with animals. We always saw the whales, the beautiful dolphins, everything, right? But we don't really understand what happened with those animals when they are in the sea. They never teach us at the school, right? We learn with the animals, but we don't learn what really happened with these animals at the school.
Yeah, we don't learn what their connections are with each other and the interdependence of all of those species within their ecosystems. For instance, we say, oh, there's too many seals are eating all the fish. But what they don't realize is that the more seals there are, the more fish there are for a healthy ecosystem. Yeah. When Jacques Boucher first came over to the New World in the 1500s, there were 45 million seals in the North Atlantic. And now that seal population has been reduced to less than 10%. There was no shortage of fish back in 1500, but now they're saying it's not the seals; it's the greed of the fishing operations that are taking that.
Yeah.
Okay.
My son's crying. I don't know if you can hear him.
Paul, do you think that it's important to expose children to nature? Is that how we can train empathy with the environment and the animals?
Well, absolutely. I mean, children should be exposed to nature as much as possible. I mean, that's where the real education is, And I started when I was 10 years old swimming with beavers, and when the next year when I found the beavers had been taken out by trappers, I got very angry and started to destroy trap lines and release animals, and that's how I started. Is because of that, So yeah. Could you excuse me for one moment? I'll just grab my son and
Sure, go. For sure. No problem.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, my wife is with my other son, and my other son's at a chess tournament with my wife.
Hey, how are you, baby?
Yeah, this is Murtaugh.
Yeah, he's happy now.
Oh, he's usually happy except when he wakes up.
He loves. He's now our next guest. Okay.
He only says one word, right?
It's nice to have you here with us. So, one thing, Paul, that I want you to explain about the CS Harper and even about yourself. What's your relationship now with Canada?
With Canada?
Yeah.
I can't.
What happened that you are not? That's why, because at the beginning I said, because our podcast, we always get the people that being here with us back to face, right? That I like this after 2 years with this pandemic. We always talk about phone. We always just see by computer. So when we started this podcast, we prefer said, "Oh, let's call people, let's face to face. We can share ideas after at the backstage, everything." But you are not here. You cannot come to here to Canada. What's your relationship now with Canada and even with CS Harper? What's your job here now?
Well, we drove the Japanese whaling fleet out of the Southern Ocean. That made them quite angry.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
We never hurt anybody. We never damaged any property, but we cost them about $200 million in losses. So they want their revenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I talked at the beginning, right? Because the people's blaming because the money, right?
They charged me with a conspiracy to trespass. And they got me on the Interpol Red List. Now, the Interpol Red List is for war criminals, serial killers, and major drug traffickers. I'm the only person in the history of the Interpol Red List to be on there for conspiracy to trespass. And so because of that, John Kerry, who was Secretary of the United States, took a look at that and said, this is nonsense, and let me back into the U.S. because I am a U.S. citizen, but I'm also a Canadian citizen. But Justin Trudeau has made it very clear that if I cross that border, he's going to have me extradited to Japan to pay on that charges. And if I go to Japan, they're going to take their revenge. They're not going to let me go. I can go to France. The French have no problem with that. But Canada has made it very clear that but I think it's more to do with the fact that Canada wants their revenge for our opposition to fish farms and the seal hunt and different things like that. So it's purely political.
But you are still acting here, right? CS Harper is still acting here inside the Canada.
Sea Shepherd's in Canada, Sea Shepherd's in 42 different countries. Yeah, but Sea Shepherd isn't me. It's a movement.
Okay.
We have 12 ships out there. There's 300 or 400 people on those ships at any given time. We have people operating in countries all over the world. This is what I always wanted to do. To me, a successful movement doesn't have to have a leader. And yeah, I'm a founder of Sea Shepherd and sort of a figurehead, but I don't call the shots. Everybody in their own ship, the captains call the shots, the directors in their countries call the shots, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But it's hard for you because you are Canadian and you are was doing the right thing in the you are blaming because you make the right thing.
Well, yeah, the hard part, I couldn't attend Parliament's funeral. I couldn't attend my brother's funeral. I can't come across the border for that. That's the hard part of it. But otherwise,
you have all your family lives here, right?
Most of my family lives there. Yes, that's true. My family we're Acadians, so the family goes back to 1580 in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. So yeah, we're very much long-standing. History in Canada, but sometimes this is sacrifices you have to make on that. I was fighting Pierre Trudeau when he was prime minister, and now I'm fighting Justin Trudeau. I'll tell you a funny story about Justin Trudeau, though, because I went to school with Margaret Trudeau, and many years ago, Simon Fraser University.
Oh, okay.
And many years ago, I saw her standing on the corner in front of the Vancouver Hotel with a stroller, and I walked over to her, and that was Justin Trudeau in that stroller. And I remember saying to her, "Do you think he's going to be prime minister someday?" Because and she looked at me and she said, "God, I hope not."
You don't have this one record, right?
Well, no,
you don't have this recorded, right? Yeah. Yeah, but it's hard because, as I said at the beginning, if it's everything worth, right, at your job, because sometimes you need to, you are far from your family. As you said, you have the funeral that you cannot come here to Canada. It's the country that you was born. So it's a amazing inspiration for you for everything that you are doing, because you are not putting yourself in the first, right? You are putting the animals, you are putting the environment first, right? Then your own life. That's pretty good. That's amazing what you are doing. I'm really inspiring you, what you are doing. That's for us a very, very good inspiration. That's why we try to tell for as much as people that we can about your job, about your activism, but about what Sea Shepherds are doing around the world. That's a pretty amazing job. It's pretty good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. So just we are almost done, right? You can take care of your kids. He's like it.
He's a bit fascinated by the conversation.
Yeah, he's fascinated here. He's gonna learn a lot. So just Paul, with one word, no, but I'm gonna say one word for you, and you just said what comes to your mind first, right? So about climate change.
Climate change?
What do you have to say about climate change? It's just very small.
I wrote a book last year on climate change called Urgent. And really, what I said in 2015 at the Climate Change Conference in Paris is that if we really are serious about addressing climate change, we've got to protect the ocean. The ocean regulates climate. And hardly anybody was talking about the ocean at that conference. And what's the solution to that is to do nothing, really. Leave the ocean alone, do nothing, shut down all the heavy mechanized industrialized fishing operations, put an end to ocean mining and ocean drilling, leave it alone, allow it to recover because it will recover. It's very resilient. During the 20th century, the two times the ocean recovered from overfishing was World War I and World War II, and we're busy killing each other. We weren't wiping out the life in the ocean. Mm-hmm. So just leave it alone and it will recover. Give it a moratorium of at least 70 to 100 years to do that. Bring that life back, bring that diversity back. That, I think, is one of the major solutions to climate change. And another thing is to get rid of the military-industrial complex. This industry that's dependent upon building weapons. I mean, the amount of fossil fuels and energy that's used just to kill each other is absolutely astounding on that. So we got to, really address that. And these wars happen primarily because of for profit. All of them happen for profit. People want territory. People want to sell and buy arms. I mean, the war in the Ukraine right now is probably the greatest thing that could happen to the stock market when it comes to the arms industry, and they're just loving it. And and when they're the ones who are happy about it, and that's why I find that's why I'm very cynical about the whole thing.
Yeah, perfect. I like your answer. When next time when the people ask me about what should I do about the climate change, I'm gonna say nothing. They do nothing. What are you gonna do? Do nothing. Leave it alone, right? Leave the environment alone. Leave the animals alone, right?
And by doing nothing, we also have to intervene to make the people who are doing something to stop doing something.
Yeah. So, how do you see for now at the future? What's our future?
Well, like I said before, I don't look into the future. I focus on the present. The future will be what the future will be. And we either learn to live in harmony with the natural world or we won't survive. It's as simple as that. So the choices are ours. Do we want to do that or do we not? Because in the end, nature will call the shots. And, if there's an ecological collapse, I mean, I don't think people really understand just how tenuous the situation is. Back in 1968, there was a movie called No Blade of Grass. It was based on a book called The Death of Grass. Mm. And in the movie, what happens is the U.S., in order to combat the Chinese, introduces a virus into the rice crops to destroy the rice. But what they didn't realize is that rice is a grass, and that virus extended to the entire grass family. Yeah. If the grass family died out today, within 3 or 4 years, we will be fighting with sticks and stones over potatoes. We do not live. Everything is so dependent upon the grass family. The animals that eat the grasses will die. With no wheat, no corn, all of this. But we don't really give much thought to that interdependence and just how dependent we are upon all those different species.
Perfect. And just for last off about the Sea Shepherd, what do you want to say for now? What the Sea Shepherds are doing, or if they are not, or if some people want to know more about Sea Shepherd. If they can join, what they can do to help us, how the people can reach out to this.
Well, you can find Sea Shepherd on the internet quite easily. But what we're doing right now, something which is quite unique, is we're in partnerships with various governments around the world. We provide the resources and they provide the authority. So we're now in partnership with numerous African governments like Gabon, Gambia, Namibia, Tanzania, Sao Paulo, Liberia. And we've seized over 72 poaching vessels in cooperation with those governments over the last couple of years. We're also working in partnership with Peru, Colombia, Panama and Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite confident if it wasn't for our partnership with Mexico, the endangered vaquita porpoise would now be extinct. We've confiscated over 120,000 meters of illegal nets there. We're also involved with major removing of ghost nets and plastic debris from beaches, especially on deserted islands like Cocos Keeling Island in the Indian Ocean, Cocos Island off of Costa Rica, and taking enormous amounts of marine debris from the bottom that have been lost by using divers, which are called the ghost net campaigns. And so, yeah, we're the campaign. I can't even keep track of our campaigns because they're, like I said, it's a movement, and I know they're happening all over the place.
Perfect. Okay, Paul.
Okay. Thank you.
Just getting a little restless here too.
I'm looking here. I remember for my son. I love kids.
Yeah, my son today is turning 18, so
so smile. Cute. He's a great teacher. He has a great teacher like you.
Oh, yeah, him and his brother. His brother's 5. So
nice. Okay, thank you so much, Paul, for taking time with us and share your stories with us and with your community. Is very thank you. I don't have words to say thank you because it's so hard in this time for everyone, and you will need people for inspiring and to make the right things now.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul. So that's all for today, right? So peoples that are watching, thank you very much for watching this new episode. I hope everybody enjoy. I'm pretty sure that we have a lot to talk with Paul. Maybe next time we can invite him again. We continue our great conversation here, right, Paul? And,
okay,
and thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. So like us and subscribe and don't miss out any episode. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you.